I think there's a common theme that we suck as deer hunters sometimes. And that includes me in the past, and I try to keep from getting sucked in to some of these temptations and gizmos, gadgets that can ruin a hunt. And I'm pretty good at it nowadays, but it's, I've been hunting since my first season was 1986. So we're going back a little ways. And I'd like to think that I've learned a little bit along the way. I don't know if this is my 37th season, I have to do the math, but it's been a long time. And there's a common theme that I want to talk about of why you're failing as a deer hunter, or why you're not the best you can be as a deer hunter. A lot of times it takes experience like anything. We live, we learn, but sometimes we're not learning because we're doing the same thing every year. And part of this, and I'll look at this number one right here, why we're failing, and I wrote it out. Trail cams, gadgets, arrows, scent control, food plots, habitat improvements, baiting. We're relying on so many things outside of actual good old-fashioned deer hunting strategy. That deer hunting strategy is something that takes experience. That's something you can learn. If you read and you study from the right sources, you can actually learn how to be a good deer hunter before you ever even go into the woods, at least what to look for, and develop that mindset of being a predator. But unfortunately, people rely on gadgets and gizmos and scents so much, and they put so much time into that it pulls away from our effectiveness as an actual hunter. Trail cameras, for example. It was interesting. I saw a post on Instagram, and it was a picture of a wood, someone's 40-acre property, and they had 12 cameras on it, and it was all located cameras, and kind of like, we're not even giving the deer a chance. Well, obviously that was probably from some public land hunter that thinks if you have 40 acres and you put 12 trail cameras on it and you have food plots, that it's hunting's easy, right? And I'm here to tell you that if you have a good remote area of public land, which is available to anybody, probably within 2 hours of their house, just about in any state of the country, then you have a better chance of having a controlled hunt, because you can hunt on thousands of acres, sometimes hundreds of acres, as opposed to someone's 40. Because that 40-acre person, if they put 12 trail cameras out and they go out and access those at any time of the day during the season and not paying attention to their scent and what they leave behind and how they access and spook deer, then those cameras are actually ruining their 40 acres, literally ruining, and you can't do anything about it. If you're only hunting 40 acres, 80 acres, 120, 200, 500, and you mess it up because of access and because of being overly intrusive and not managing your hunting pressure, not managing your hunt, then you're going to spook a lot more deer than you can hunt. You're going to spook mostly the mature bucks, because does, fawns, and young bucks are very resilient to hunting pressure. They're the great deceivers. You drive by in an ATV, they stand up and look at you, and everyone thinks, oh, ATVs don't bother deer. Well, they don't bother some deer, but they certainly bother the mature bucks, which are that top 5%, 10% in your area. Mature being relative to your area, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, or 7-year-old. Who knows? Something of there or in between. But bottom line is that a lot of these things are spooking deer. And when they do, they're spooking them for weeks at a time. So on a 40-acre parcel or a 200-acre parcel, if you ruin your parcel, you need to wait 2 or 3 weeks for that forgiveness period to go by for deer to even come back, even if they do come back. Like a mature buck, when he finds a better area with good food, good cover, and a lack of hunting pressure, you might stay. That's where people look at like, I don't know, they just disappear. We see them at the end of the season, maybe the month after, and they're gone for the season, and that typically tells me either poor food, poor cover, but especially poor hunter management, or all three combined. So a lot of these things, we go out, there's some people right now, they debate online, heavy arrows, light arrows. I always teach balance. There's some really good physics and study of heavy arrows versus light arrows. I urge everyone to go check out Joel Maxfield. He's one of the original employees at Matthews. He's killed big game all around the world, and he does so with a balanced arrow, a balanced approach, and he does a lot of really hardcore testing that no one else does to really show you what is a good arrow setup. But bottom line is, people spend so much time on that. They even have all this time to debate online. Who has time for that kind of stuff? Scent control. There's people literally that have an hour scent control regimen before they even go out in the woods. They're literally spending an hour on scent control. Scent control takes place in stand placement and access and approach and defining where deer move. That's all strategy, not from a bottle or a bag of dust or something else like that. Food plots. I talk about all the time. I love food plots. I have a food plot seed company. But even then, I'm not going to tell everybody that you have to have food plots, because if you don't have the right equipment or the right time, a lot of times, resources of time, if you're putting them in the wrong spot, they're going to do far more harm than good. They can destroy your hunt, because if you're using food plots and you're overpressuring them and you're allowing deer to pattern you more than you're patterning them because of your access and your intrusiveness on your land because of the food plots and hunting right on the food plot or spooking deer off of those plots, then you shouldn't have food plots, and they're doing more harm than good. And I can guarantee that the majority, maybe even the super majority of all people using hunting plots are using them to their disadvantage, not their advantage. Habitat improvements in general, bedding areas, water holes, mock scrapes even. If you're putting them in the wrong spot and you're not linking them together, they could even be taking deer off of your land every day, let alone setting yourself up for spooking deer when you come in and out of your land. Baiting. There's people that have, for generations in certain areas of the country, that have only baited. Nothing wrong with that. But if you go to the same blind, staring at the same bait pile for 20 years in a row, you're going to get the same results. And typically that's not good results. And you're just not learning anything. You're just doing the same thing. You're enjoying your hunt. I have no problem with people baiting. I think it's ethical. I don't mind if people go out and do that at all. And obviously you don't need my permission, but the whole point is I think it's a great way to hunt, but you're not learning. You're not improving yourself as a hunter. And again, if you're relying on all of these things right here, and we could add scent attractions, we could add a whole bunch of things to this list, water holes, whatever it might be. But if you're not learning how actually mature bucks move through the woods, then there's a common theme right here, number 2, of why we're failing, because we're actually relying on so much garbage out there that we're not actually becoming a better hunter, let alone a better steward of the land. Stewardship, people talk about conservation, stewardship, but if they're making haphazard improvements that don't actually produce wildlife or good results, small game populations, whitetails, birds, butterflies, bees, if you're not combining those all together and doing it right, that's effective, we need to demand results with what we're doing. Think about that. Habitat improvements. Just because you have a pretty field of native grasses or pollinator blends or switchgrass bedding, hinge cuts, good timber stand improvement based on a forester's recommendation, a pond in the right location to have a pond. Just because you're doing all that and it looks pretty and it's perfect, your food plots look perfect, doesn't mean you're a steward or a conservationist if you're not getting results because you didn't put everything together correctly. And that's where it keeps you from becoming a better hunter. A lot of times we're going out to property at about that 7-year itch time, meaning you've had the land for 7 years, you bought the land with good hunting intentions, you couldn't wait to hunt it with your family, your friends, you make a lot of improvements, you spend a lot of money, you spend more money, and then all of a sudden 7 years later you have a diminishing return and you're further away from your success than you were at year 1 when you did nothing. Because nothing is done with hunting strategy in mind. And that's number 3 right here. That's why we fail as hunters. Zero hunting strategy. Zero strategy for how deer move and why, how mature bucks move and why. That's the type of thing that takes experience that you can cut the learning curve on. Obviously hunting better days than not. I strongly recommend you hunt the weather if you can. Hunt the weather. Not everyone can. They have to hunt certain days. But obviously if it's a 95-degree day in November in mid-Ohio or mid-Indiana and there's 40-mile-an-hour winds, it's going to be a bad day to hunt. Doesn't matter what the moon is, whatever. It's just look at the extremes. It's going to be a bad day to hunt. We need to get away from the reliance on gizmos and gadgets and all these trinkets. I carry a grunt call every time I go in the woods. This happens to be right sitting here because we did a video on it recently. And I like these right here, the True Talkers, that's like a rubberized one. To me, it has more of a natural sound, but regardless, this isn't what's going to put a big buck. This is one where he's going by and he's not going to go by close enough for a bow shot. I'm going to grunt and see if I can get him back. It's almost a Hail Mary. I believe strongly in certain types of broadheads. I'm going to use this one this year. I really like it, the Slick Trick, the Salem. It's one that has good tip, solid point, bleeder blades, and then also has expandable blades. So it's that hybrid type. I like those. I used to use the Trocar HB. I like those too. Bottom line is, that's not going to get me the deer. heavier arrows or lighter arrows isn't going to get me a deer. That should be the easy part, the shot, getting the shot off. Nothing magical about that. You did all your work to get that deer in front of you, but that work isn't going to come from, and success is not going to come from any of these gizmos and gadgets, scent contraption machines, whatever it might be. Instead, it's going to come from, that that buck is moving from that bedding area to that bedding area during the rut looking for does. He's moving from that bedding area to that food source in the afternoon looking for food. He's going back to that bedding area in the morning, which you've already pre-located a stand on the downwind side of that bedding area that you can control your scent from, and you're there waiting for him to come back. By reading the weather, knowing that if it's warm in the morning, he's probably there. If it's windy, rainy, he's probably already in his bedding area in the morning, so you shouldn't go in there. And knowing that if it's a really cool night on Thursday and it was a warm night on Tuesday, you got a better chance of shooting him on Thursday. You're just stacking those decks in your favor, but you're not stacking the deck of cards in your favor by using these gizmos and gadgets and all these trinkets. Instead, you're stacking the odds in your favor by reading the conditions, targeting a certain buck in a certain area or a certain sign on public land that you're hunting. You might not even know what that buck is. And you're going in and you're just making good old-fashioned smart hunting decisions that you can find success without doing any of this right here. And I'm not saying that some of these don't help you greatly, but unfortunately, they all have a great ability to hurt you as much as they can help you. And that's why we have this channel. Whether it's food plots, water holes, mock scrapes, access, stand location, we want to put it all together for you. So when you go out in the woods, you can do so with confidence that you're basing your plan of attack and hunting plan of attack on something that actually works. Typically, the more money you spend, the more time you spend on your land, the less success you find because your reliance on something other than hunting strategy is really taking a priority, and you can get into a real trap. We have a lot of commenters on YouTube that say, you know what, I got kind of turned off to hunting in the last 5 to 10 years, and these strategies are why I hunt. These got me excited to go back out in the woods. And that's what'll keep you as a hunter. That's what'll attract you as a hunter, retain you as a hunter. And the more you rely on strategy, it's a good thing for not only your own hunt, but the hunting industry and us as hunters and whitetail hunters, as true stewards and conservationists of the land. And go into this season really learning the hunting strategy, and you'll be on target a lot more this year, and certainly as you gain more experience for years to come. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.